This video is an introduction to APA referencing style, which is an essential component throughout your university studies. And it's important to reference your work to give credit to the sources you're using, essentially. And we do this through having the referencing system. It's important to understand all the little nitty-gritty bits about punctuation, capital letters, italicized. All these little pieces of information are essential when presenting your reference list. But we only create a reference list and present a list at the end of your work for those resources that you've used throughout the main body. So here is an example of a Word document with quite a lot of text. This is quite a long literature review. And I'm going to use this just as an example of what it looks like in a Word document. So to avoid plagiarizing this work, I have put someone else's information in my own words. And to prevent myself from being pulled up for plagiarizing this source, I have given the in-text citation, as you can see here as an example. Okay, so this says that this is the owner of this information that has come previous to it. That is one example of an in-text citation. So where this appears, it also must appear, therefore, in the reference list. And here we see it written in the reference list. Okay, so that's just one style example of in-text citation. Another example is when you use the authors in a sentence. So you can see here I've got an example for saying this is reinforced by Alexander and Rosso, 2010, who identified, etc., etc. So I'm making reference with the author in text, so it appears slightly different. When you're using someone else's words as a direct quote, so there is no changes to what you have copied from a resource, we use direct quotes quite minimally because paraphrasing is a more apt way of summarizing information. But when there is something that needs to be referenced directly, then you need to reference it in text appropriately for that direct quote and make it clear that you are quoting the original author. So I have an example from a website, and I can tell it's from a website because I've got, instead of a page number, I've got a paragraph number. That is the difference between something that has page numbers and those that don't. This is presented with my author here in a sentence. So it's important to state the difference with direct quotations. This is Henderson and Yowles, 2012, who conclude, etc., etc. And when I get to the part about their direct quote, I do use double quotation marks at the beginning and at the end of their direct quote. And then I provide directly after that direct quote, I provide the page or paragraph reference. This is one way of referencing directly as an in-text citation. Another way of referencing a direct quote with in-text citation is when an author is not used in the sentence and I start my direct quote, you can see here. So this is information that can't be presented in any other way. Access, interpret, organize, analyze, and present knowledge to others. That's really quite complicated to paraphrase. So I've used a direct quote. Immediately following that, this is where the author goes, the year, and the page reference of where you got that. So you can see two different styles of in-text citation for direct quotes. Now, a direct quote can be broken as to whether it's a short quote or a long quote. And in the APA guide that's given, you can see the examples that they provide for short quotes. So short quotes being less than 40 words. And they are written in a sentence using the double quotation marks and the in-text citations as demonstrated. Usually we do only ask for page numbers to be written for direct quotes. It's not technically incorrect if you provide the page number for something that is not a direct quote, but it is encouraged by the APA style, but is not essential. So there really is a bit of a leeway there. And as mentioned before, it is important that you use the paragraph number for anything that's found on the web that doesn't have page numbers. Another option is obviously a long quote. Now these are probably more unusual in education and the science field that I come from, but long quotes can be used if in a big standing block of text, and they are for quotes that have more than 40 words. So it does have some guidelines here on how that looks within a document. I don't have an example for you because I've never used a long quote of more than 40 words. So that might give you a little idea of how rare they may be in our particular area. They're more common in literature and those sorts of areas. So I hope that's explained a little bit about where to find the APA referencing guide, some information on using direct quotes, and what it looks like with in-text citations and how you use the authors and what is actually expected for writing in a document. So this is just one example in a Word document, but it is something that it stands you in good stead to go forward with other resources.